Cool. Hello and welcome to another edition of Campfire Chats with Outward Bound. My name is Paul Marshalsea and I am the Head of Early Careers for the Outward Bound Trust. I've got the pleasure today of being joined by Kat Favret from Amazon. Congratulations on your role, Kat. I believe you're 6 months in. But I guess what's interesting for me is I know we've had a very long journey with yourself, Kat, from your times as an apprentice recruiter at GSK, as an early careers lead at Vodafone, and now in your capacity at Amazon. So congratulations on that, and welcome to this Campfire Chat. I guess be great to hear a little bit about you, Kat, get your perspective on your journey, and a little bit about the exciting role you now have at Amazon.
Sure, thank you, and thanks so much for having me. So I guess I've been, as you've said, in the early talent space actually my whole career. So I think I
Wow.
was really lucky to find it early on, and the passion has not waned. I think it's one of those spaces where you really feel the impact of your work, and you get to see it in the faces of your stakeholders, but also importantly the kind of graduates and interns and apprentices that you look after. So yeah, have had roles across the recruitment side and then moved into the program management side. So currently working at Amazon. So my role is leading the internship program and our newly launched this week graduate program for Amazon across all of the countries within Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Wow, that's perfect, and I think yeah, that's exactly why we have asked you today to come along and talk to us about knowledge and building networks for those international early talent programs. So definitely sounds like we've got the right person for the job, Kat. So great to have you here. Um, so I guess in your experience, what are the challenges delivering those early career or early talent programs across several business units, countries, and different cities around the world? Or,
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when you're building a program, you do have to be quite conscious that a one size all model, whilst it would be ideal for you and be able to kind of pick up and repeat and kind of chunk out what you're doing across all your lines of business and all the different countries, that doesn't work in every country. There's different needs, there's different working days. We've got MENA
Mhm.
where people work on a Sunday. So there's lots of things that you have to be considerate of when you're building out your strategy. I like to kind of take a 75-25% rule when I'm building out kind of programs and learning pathways, and just the strategy from an early talent perspective, that kind of 75% should be consistent, because actually we want to make sure that we
Mhm.
can measure success of key things across all different areas, and all different countries and lines of business,
Mhm.
but also be able to be flexible for the business, for the candidates themselves, and also to think about. I think a challenge is, whilst we are going to have to do all of that virtually if we want everyone to
Mhm.
connect, there's also opportunities now that the world is opening back up again to think about hybrid. And I think bringing the business along and your kind of graduates and interns along in a bit of a mix of what's going to work best actually in smaller groups, maybe face to face or in certain cities, versus what can we do on a bigger scale that's still going to be engaging but in a
Yeah,
virtual way.
yeah.
So for me, those are probably two of those big things.
Oh, wow, wow. Yeah, no, I mean, that's really interesting to hear how you split that in your head in building your strategy to kind of have that 75% consistent across the piece, but then that 25% differentiation for both, I guess, individuals and for, different kind of country needs as well. So it's, not just kind of about the individual all the time, but it's much wider than that as well. So that sounds complicated. I guess what's your top tip on trying to get that right?
Yeah, so I think anybody that knows or has worked at Amazon knows how important data is for Amazon as a
Mhm, mhm,
business. And I think where I will anchor that 75% is what we know we need to be able to kind of show data on, that's across all of our programs, across all of our countries. So what do we want to be able to say across all of EMEA? This is what has happened, or this is the improvement, or this is the net promoter scores that we're seeing, so that we can kind of measure our success across all of our regions. So for me, it's kind of what can we make sure that we need to have the data on. So whether that's satisfaction rates, whether that's manager training, whether that's adopting different trainings that we're doing, those are those pieces that I tend to kind of challenge myself on there, and also challenge myself on if there's something that's had some really good feedback that maybe has been in the 25% and has been a trial for a certain country. Should we be rolling that out? Should we be making sure that we have those opportunities even wider so that people can take advantage of those? So really kind of listening to the feedback as you go through as well. It's not an exact science. It doesn't always work. But those kind of pilots in that kind of 25% are often either really brilliant or really don't work. And actually you learn from both of those to then see what else needs to feed into that more consistent piece.
Wow. Yeah, lovely. I mean, that's lovely to hear an approach where you are using the data to make decisions. You're also using that feedback, kind of, and the intangible stuff, which is so important when working with individuals. And then I guess, just I think some great points there of how you are trialing things and I guess learning from failure, which is absolutely an essential approach to continuous improvement. So yeah, that sounds fab. So I guess we kind of talk a bit about the challenges. I guess what are the things that are the benefits or that you're really enjoying by having that diverse span world kind of team to work with?
Yeah, I think, well, diverse is the word, and I think is what's making it so enjoyable. It is so brilliant to have so many different perspectives, both from a business perspective, but also at like an individual level in terms of what people are excited about, what the needs are, and also getting to work with so many people from different backgrounds really challenges how you do stuff, what you think about, and what's going to work. It really challenges me. Like, I'm based in London, have worked kind of in global teams before, but have always had quite a kind of UK spin. It's really challenged me to kind of, I guess, not put that kind of European head on. And really make sure that we're thinking much more kind of globally around what we're doing. So I love that. It's definitely challenging me, and I'm just getting to work with brilliant people with really great backgrounds.
Wow. I mean, yeah, who wouldn't want that job? That sounds like one that's will just take you on to next levels, I guess, as well in terms of your personal journey, Kat. So yeah, really looking forward to hearing how that goes as time goes on. Maybe we'll pull that back in a couple of years' time on the next Campfire chat.
Sign me up.
That's great, Kat. So I guess I mean, this is all still really relevant. I guess you're obviously needing to create quite stimulating environments in a very virtual world for those groups to come together. I guess what are you finding most successful in building those networks and creating that sense of community in those virtual environments?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is using the peer-to-peer network. So whilst it's brilliant for kind of me to think about opportunities and my team to think about opportunities and build stuff into our programs, actually what's been really successful is setting up like intern for intern communities. We call it an intern engagement committee, or graduates that look after graduates community. We had it at Vodafone, we had it at GSK. They are such a valuable resource. They are people that are on the ground, they're listening to their peers, and they also create things that offer a bit more of a kind of casual networking. So rather than it feeling really formal and kind of coming from, student programs saying, come and network, and sometimes that can feel a bit scary and come and feel a little bit intimidating. Whereas actually, if it's been designed by your peers and actually maybe student programs isn't there, and actually it's a peer-to-peer conversation, it's on topics that are really relevant to you, and it is a bit more open and a bit more free, it will often encourage people that might have been a little bit reluctant to join some of the more formal networking opportunities to kind of come and join those. There's been some brilliant things that have come out. When I was at Vodafone, the team did like a 24-hour Twitch kind of show. It's not very down with the kids, definitely not a show. Stream. So
Nice.
they took kind of half an hour or an hour to kind of stream on Twitch, and it was all for charity, and that was all organised by the grads and the apprentices themselves.
Oh
So
wow.
it was incredible, and they raised an amazing amount of money for charity, but it also meant that they got to meet lots of people that had similar interests in terms of gaming that they might not
Yeah.
have met before, kind of across different programs, and that was
Oh,
all
that's fab.
organized by them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's definitely a resource to tap into in terms of that peer-to-peer engagement to really
Uh,
complement what you're doing on a bigger scale.
Yeah, no, I mean that just sounds lovely. I guess it feels like there's that real empowerment to go and try things, do new things, and then have that voice and that ability to do it under the banner of the organization you're working for, and be supported. So that sounds great. Um, so I guess with that, I guess we got a lot of young people in early career programs are very much au fait with technology, in ways of in how they communicate. I guess then just thinking about behaviours, which I know is where we've done a lot of work with yourself in the past. How do you find behaviours develop? I guess, is it the best way to develop behaviours, and also how do you find they develop through those virtual environments for the workplace?
Yeah, so I think, being au fait with technology at any level is the way forward. And
Yeah,
actually, the rate of growth in the tech sector, even just looking at kind of how we're talking now on different platforms, those weren't around a few years ago. And actually,
absolutely.
people who have kind of grown up with that speed of technology, I think, show some great behaviors in terms of being able to adapt to those and pick them up really quickly. So actually, I think that's brilliant from a workplace setting, and always encourage kind of young people that maybe have a better way of doing something, or something faster, or a different platform, to really share that with their
Hmm,
teams,
hmm.
and with the business to help speed along the business's growth as well. I think the other side of that is often with kind of social media platforms, or lots of stuff is very bite sized and very quick, and
Hmm.
you get quite used to kind of really quick, sharp content. And actually, in a workplace, things take a while. You often have to kind of sit for an hour-long meeting, which you're really not used to from a kind of social media perspective. So I think there's a real conscious change in behaviour that we have to encourage
Hmm.
and support, and kind of recognise that actually that looks very different, and really make sure that we're doing our part from an early careers perspective of kind of setting those expectations on what it looks like, and supporting that kind of Zoom fatigue, and thinking
Yeah,
about some
yeah.
ways that we can help with that. So can we shorten meetings? Can we have different, like, meeting free Fridays for early talent? Can we do things like that that help balance some of that fatigue that comes from when you're just not used to that, I guess, longer term thinking, but also longer term, like, meetings and ways of
Yeah, yeah,
working.
yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I guess my team are predominantly a remote team as well, so we work in this virtual world a lot. And I know one thing that, um, for me, I'm very keen to make sure happens is kind of a regular opportunities to come together as teams and work on the relationship, not how we work, I guess, but why we want to be working together as a team. And that's another kind of aspect of this for me, is the relationship side, and those just behaviors that you can develop by having a great understanding and connection with each other. Yeah, I mean, is that what do you guys do in that space?
Yeah, absolutely. I am such a firm believer that in a virtual setting, when you've got a meeting with someone, I will always encourage people to spend like the first 5 minutes just not talking about work, especially if you've not met yet,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
if you haven't met in a while, or if you've seen something interesting, you know them well, but actually there's something interesting that's come up that you can talk about, just to kind of build that relationship, which you would naturally do if you were like walking to the meeting room, or if you were kind of having those
Yeah,
interactions at the
yeah.
desk
It's
that we
like,
just don't have anymore. And it's really easy when you're in back-to-back meetings to just kind of dive in, but taking 5 minutes either at the
mm,
beginning or at the end, I always encourage the beginning to kind of set it out in a nice space, works really well, because relationship building is probably the thing that is most thought about in virtual networking, is
mhm,
kind of how
mhm.
to do that and how to continue those. And I think those little 5-minute nuggets work really well.
Cool. Oh, that's great. That's cool. So then, I guess thinking about Amazon, and other organizations, I guess, where where the leadership principles that you guys have, very much are about driving that behavior, that kind of skills within the organization to kind of be successful. I guess what's been your most successful way of immersing people into those values and creating that personal alignment?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the things that works really well at Amazon for us is we do something quite similar to this. So, kind of campfire chats, leadership speaker series that has a particular focus from either a leader or someone in the business that has really used one of those leadership principles and can kind of talk to it in terms of the good aspects, the aspects that make it a little bit tricky, and kind of actually anchor it in how it's actually been used in practice. Because you can read them, you can kind of throw them into a meeting and kind of say them,
Mm,
but actually bringing them to life in terms of how they've actually helped with decision making or to challenge a stakeholder is really valuable. And actually, the ones that we tend to get the most kind of signups for is when that's one of our leaders, because then you can really see throughout the organizations and the levels of the organization that actually
mhm.
those leadership principles are what we can leverage to really make the right decisions. But hearing it firsthand really makes a difference to our kind of interns and graduates. So those have worked really well to just bring it to life a little bit.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I mean, that's great that leaders are willing to put that time and effort in, and I guess be potentially vulnerable in that stake where they're sharing perhaps things that they've done well, but equally where they're having challenges, so that they're needing to consider that approach in terms of engaging stakeholders or working up across working up in the organization or working across the organization. So that sounds good. So I guess, have you seen any differences in how young people are connecting and working together since the COVID period?
Oh, great question. I think how they work together and how they connect has changed hugely, and that's all kind of down to tech. So really thinking
Okay.
about how we're using like chat functions and different streaming platforms and kind of connecting on those levels
Mm,
inside and outside of work. I think has been really interesting to see. They've adapted really quickly to maybe not seeing people so much face to face and really kind of
mm,
double down on different platforms that allow them to connect on things like Twitch, where they've got an interest and connecting on those. So I think I've definitely seen that. I know I've mentioned it, but I've definitely noticed the kind of, I guess, like Zoom fatigue that you hear with
yeah.
young people in particular, and especially when you're new to a business and you're kind of onboarding and you're training. I think we need to be really conscious and purposefully plan for
Yeah.
different types of interactions that just free up their time a little bit, and having some breaks in there so that you can actually kind of take some time to maybe have an informal chat or just catch up on something or learn in a different way than just kind of presenting or in meetings. So I think I've definitely noticed that kind of fatigue set in,
Hmm,
probably
hmm,
in the
hmm.
first kind of 6 months as you're kind of ramping up into a role and getting used to working life in an organization. And that's definitely something that we purposefully plan for when we're
That's
building
good.
out our strategies.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess I remember conversations with you during COVID times, where so much of that fatigue was such a huge challenge for your young people. At Vodafone at the time, that I remember you working really hard to make sure we got as many of those young people on their Outward Bound program as we possibly could, just to kind of get them out of that environment
Mhm.
and give them something new, having spent 12 solid months locked in rooms and stuff. So yeah, no, I can still hear and remember that and see the challenges we had to work through then. So I guess kind of keeping on that same theme, it has been reported that generations are less work ready, kind of post or than they were pre-pandemic. I guess, what have you noticed there, and what impacts or differences in maturity levels are you seeing, and how does it affect their ability to join the workforce?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. So for
Hmm.
me, I think we need to redefine what we see as work ready, because I
Okay.
think actually the workplace has changed so much in terms of what behaviors we want to see, and what we really value. So things like using technology, things like thinking really differently, driving innovation quickly, bringing new ideas. I think all of those things young people always have, but especially
Mm,
do bring to organizations. So I think in that sense, have they maybe had less of an opportunity with gaps in education due to COVID, or work experience if they were university students, being cancelled because of pandemics? Absolutely. And I think we definitely kind of maybe see that in terms of CVs full of people that have done 7 different summer internships before they
yeah.
even graduate. I think we're seeing less of that, but I think that was never, and especially in the organizations that I've worked for, that's not a prerequisite of doing really well in a role. Actually, it's a lot more about potential.
Okay.
Um, so I think they've maybe had some less opportunities back in kind of pandemic days to be able to do some of those more formalized work experience. But I think
Mm,
it's all about how they bring the skills that they definitely do have, into that workforce. From a maturity level perspective, I personally haven't seen too much change on that sense.
mhm,
Um, I think it's actually more of a confidence piece. Actually, if they haven't had a lot of that interaction with maybe other companies or work experience, or even like part-time jobs that have become less available, there's less of that kind of confidence piece to raise issues or to speak out or to challenge, which we always
mm.
look for, right? We always go, challenge us, think of something different. Actually, that's really hard, if you don't have that kind of confidence behind you. So I think that's
Yeah, yeah.
probably more of the angle that I've seen, from an early
Mm.
talent perspective.
And that, I mean, then that's really interesting. I've loved what you've just said there, because you've really honed in on that, that young person's voice, I guess, and change, and driving change, and developing the workforce to be more, um, more focused on the new ways of working, and that kind of evolution of the workforce, really, than thinking about behaviors in the past linked to practices in the past. So that's great. I
Yeah.
guess it kind of then springs to mind that creates, I guess, that misalignment between that cross-generational gap. So when you have the kind of typically more senior, older individuals who are used to certain practices and ways, I wonder what's kind of what things are you seeing or doing to help bridge those gaps?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of generational differences, especially
Mm,
usually between kind of managers and things, is definitely something that we look at. So actually, absolutely, we're there to support kind of interns and graduates, but actually their managers and their leaders are a huge part of that journey, and at an
great.
individual level have the most impact. So actually supporting them with kind of pre-onboarding training, resources that speaks to things like growth mindset. So how do you
Hmm. Hmm.
encourage growth mindset within a young person, actually calling out some of the generational differences and kind of what they look like, and how to have the right conversations and kind of open up the conversations in terms of ways of working and expectation setting,
Mm,
so that you're setting yourself up for success, is definitely things that we look at, as well as your kind of more formalized kind of trainings on expectations of the program, but actually just opening up the conversation. One of the things that has worked really well across lots of organizations that I've worked for is kind of like steering committees, or kind of business points of contact that are kind of people
mhm,
within the
mhm.
business that are a manager, but also know the business really well,
Yeah.
and work really closely with the early talent and student programs teams and also the business to kind of bridge some of that at a peer-to-peer level as well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also just thinking about kind of managing expectations and bringing you up to speed on things like if you're working in a technical function, technical training, kind of what that looks like and how you train a kind of person who's kind of newer into their career than someone who's maybe kind of come from an external company looks really
Mhm,
different. So actually they are a great resource to build out some of that, and to call out some of those differences, and just support the more support networks, I think, and people that
mhm,
young people have to ask different questions to, the more confident and kind of faster they'll upskill, and actually that builds their network from your way, right? We always encourage them to
Hmm.
build a
Hmm.
network organically, but actually if you're setting up some of that in terms of leaders or business points of contact as well as
Yeah, yeah,
managers and
yeah,
mentors, then they've already got that set up. So it really helps to kind of make those extra connections and
yeah.
build from there.
Uh, Fabulous. I mean that. Yeah. I mean what you've just described there is just a very which I guess goes back to one of the first points I said about you must be a very busy person in your role, because I mean it's the way you're ensuring that vertical alignment along with horizontal alignment is happening across your business to bring in and engage and develop young people and create those networks and give those opportunities for both senior managers to change and adapt, but also for young people to kind of be that advocate for change, if you like, as they're coming in and wanting different things from a business. Yeah, you must be a very busy lady, Kat.
I think
um,
everyone in early talent is, but yeah,
yeah,
we
no, I
love
think you're right, and
it.
it's just lovely to hear that scope of thinking and work that you guys are really getting involved in there and integrating that across the organisation. I mean, that I think for me that really kind of pulls together some great aspects of your role and Amazon. And I guess what we're keen to then do is ask a final campfire chat question, and it would be very much thinking about the young people. And it's what would be three things that you would recommend for a young person who's on that journey from leaving education and moving into early careers or early talent, so that they could be successful in their career.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Three top tips. I think the first one is genuinely if you are, kind of leaving and you've got something in the pipeline and you're kind of just in that little limbo, take a break. You
Hmm.
have genuinely need to be kind to yourself that you've actually gone through a full education system, you've had exams coming out of your ears, and actually from a mental health perspective, being able to kind of take a step back, think about how much you've already achieved, and actually give yourself a little bit of time to
Hmm.
relax before you then ramp up again into that corporate world is really important, and I think should be really encouraged.
Mm.
Um, I think the second one for me is think about how you can start building your networks before you're even there. So if you have companies that you aspire to work for, or if you've already done amazing and got an offer, how are you using things like LinkedIn? Are you searching
Hmm.
for people that would be your early careers leaders or kind of current graduates or current apprentices? And are you connecting with those? Even if you're just press and connect, the more they're interacting with things across their network, the more you'll be able to learn about what
Hmm.
they're up to, the things that are
Yeah.
important for their business, how they're building skills. So for me, using things like LinkedIn whilst you're kind of searching or getting ready to join a company, is just going to get you into some great habits.
Hmm.
Um,
I love that.
and I think finally for me, just taking a little bit of time to remember, say, if you've got a role that you're coming into, like why you applied in the first place and really what you want to get out of that role. And maybe have like 3 or 4 things that you want to achieve in the first 90 days, the first 6 months, that you're really holding yourself accountable to as you join that company. Because it's really easy to kind of get put into the weeds and you just start doing that J job and you forget why you were really excited about it or kind of the skills that you were really
Yeah.
excited to learn. And if you're really conscious to kind of take yourself back to that place, it will then help you make sure you're getting the most out of the opportunities that you have, because it's absolutely a two-way street. Yes, the company is going to get some brilliant work out of you, but also you're developing and it's your skills that you should be putting first. So if you're just, if you're in that space where you're thinking about it, write it down, have it on a sticky note,
Mhm.
have it in your notes, and have
Yeah.
it to refer back to as you start on that corporate journey.
Wow. I mean that's three fabulous top tips. So yeah, it's kind of that take a break and really focus on you. Build your network, typically through LinkedIn, but other ways I'm sure are possible,
Mhm.
and then have your what you want to achieve first 90 days type stuff. Great bits of advice, Kat. Thank you. I wish somebody told me those three when I started my career.
Me too.
That's brilliant, Kat. Well, thank you very much for your time today. I think, and thank you to our audience who've joined us for this campfire chat. And we look forward to seeing you all on the next one. Thank you, Kat. Have a great day.
Thank you.